welcome everyone. So happy to have everyone. Let me share this and put it on. So welcome, and just wanted to get started with AIA Oregon's community agreements. And as we're reading them and looking at them, not only for AIA Oregon, but I think these are just some beautiful agreements for life in general. We seek a community and a culture that is respectful, comfortable, open, curious, inclusive, and kind. Community agreements help us identify concrete ways to create a cohesive and safe space to exchange ideas, enable us to interact more cooperatively, and keep us on track. Some of those community agreements are to honor our group wisdom through curiosity and respect, encourage questions. We definitely encourage everyone today to have lots of questions for these panelists instead of assumptions, to do our best, assume good intent until proven otherwise, acknowledge the difference between intent and impact, take space and make space, be inclusive in our language, be present, ask for what you need and offer what you can, and uphold these commitments to learn, lean in or learn and to do that when it might be a little bit uncomfortable. So I wanted to continue on that track and share a little bit about some of the logistics for today. We ask you to mute your own mic during the presentation, the panelist discussion, and then definitely to unmute as we have the Q&A, and we'll be saving some time for that, and we hope you are coming up with a number of questions. It's always nice to have that open dialogue. We suggest that you set your camera to speaker view during the presentation, and we do want to let you know that there are continuing credits available for this event, 1 HSW, and if you've put your information in the registration, those will be recorded on your behalf. And also to remember that this is being recorded. So as you ask questions, to know that that's one thing to be cognizant of. So upcoming AIA Oregon events, there's one December 10th for catching up on your continuing education credits, which we all, I'm sure, have a few more credits we might need. So you can see when that is and go ahead, save the date and register for that. So as I mentioned, there is continuing education credit for this event itself. And here are some of the learning objectives that we hope to meet during this event. If you'd like to take a screenshot, there's a lot of text there. If you want to review it later, please feel free to do so. I'll give a moment. And let me introduce myself if I don't already know you. My name's Priya Caping. I work for the New Buildings, Energy Trust New Buildings program. And I'm excited to share a little bit about our grants today. So we do have two different types of grants. We have the Net Zero Fellowship Grant, and we also have what we'll be discussing today, the Net Zero Emerging Leaders Internship Grant. And the grants are intended to support net zero research, to help grow the net zero community in Oregon. And I did want to let you know for the fellowship grant that we do have a link that's going to be sent out that our past fellows, they put up their research, post their research as kind of a continuing library of resources that are available to you. So we invite you to look at that website, download the white papers. There's some tools available as well on there, and to explore some of the research that's been done. But today we're here to talk about the Net Zero Emerging Leadership Leaders Internship Grant. This is awarded to firms that are currently part of the AIA 2030 commitment or will soon be a part of it. And it gives them the opportunity to employ an intern to help them with the reporting on that. So if you're interested, we'll have some polls at the end to gauge your interest and hopefully connect you with more information. So I did want to let you know, as a part of Energy Trust New Buildings, we currently have an on-demand training that's available on VRF systems from design to operation, and you can access that at any time that you have a little opening available in your schedule. So again, my name is Kriya Caping. And if you have any questions about any part of the Net Zero grants and the Emerging Leaders Internship Grant, please reach out to me. I'd love to share more information with you. So without further ado, I want to stop sharing mine and hand it over to today's facilitator for this event. It is Matt Boker, who's a senior associate at Salazar Architect, Inc. And Matt's commitment to Salazar's mission-based approach has been built upon his career dedicated to multifamily housing, coupled with his deep commitment to community engagement. And Matt focuses on a whole number of things, including project and team management, staff mentoring, business development, and working with the Sustainable Design Lab. He serves on 2 Central City Concern committees. He collaborates with PSU Research-Based Design Initiative. And also for today's event, he has been a mentor through the Energy Trust of Oregon's Net Zero Emerging Leaders program. So Matt, thank you for facilitating today. And I hand it over the invisible microphone to you.
Well, thanks, Kriya. Should we just end it there? That was, I don't know how we're gonna, thank you, Kriya, and Ellen for all your time and expertise in helping to organize this event. I really appreciated your guiding hand throughout. So thank you, Kriya and Ellen. And also thanks to all of our volunteer panel members and all of you for joining tonight. You didn't have to be here. We really appreciate you joined us. Our panel tonight is made up of past mentors and mentees. So our goal is to facilitate a conversation about experience with past mentorship program through this ETO-NZELI from both the firm's perspective, but also the intern's perspective. Kriya will post a couple poll questions at the end of this conversation to follow up on folks who might be interested from either of those perspectives for the future involvement with this program. Right now, we're going to go around the room and everybody can give an individual and firm introduction for themselves. And tonight we are joined by Erica and Michelle at Greenhammer, Eric at GBD, and Zach at OTEC. So Erica and Michelle, can I hand the 2 of you the virtual mic?
Absolutely. So I'm Erica Dunn. I am the Director of Design at Greenhammer, and we were lucky enough to be recipients of the ETO Emerging Leaders Internship Grant for the last 2 years, and actually we'll be doing it again this year as well. And the first year, Michelle was our intern. So I'll pass it off to Michelle.
Yeah, I'm Michelle Montiel, and like Erica said, I was their first ETO intern. And now I'm working full-time at Greenhammer, so it's just kind of a nice introduction into the work, and we can elaborate more on that and the benefits of the internship, but I'm happy to be here.
And I think we are handing it off to Eric. Oh, there you are on my screen.
I'm Eric McDaniel. I am the Sustainability Manager at GBD Architects. And just like with Erica and Greenhammer, we have been really fortunate to have the internship for the last 2 years. And we also have been awarded for the 2022, which we're super excited about. And I'm really interested in having a conversation about some of the discussion points that are going to be raised tonight.
Think that means it's my turn. I'm Zach Dohalo with OTAC. I am a designer there, and I'm also our primary resource for sustainability coordination. OTAC has been a part of the Nazelli program for 2 years, and then following that, just maintaining a presence in providing feedback and guidance for anybody who wants it in meeting the goals of Architecture 2030 and assisting with overall ETO coordination on that front. I also worked with AIA Oregon and Energy Trust of Oregon to create the 2030 working group that some of you may have been a part of previously, which was just bent on collaboration between firms to share resources and methods for tracking energy use in their buildings.
Erica, Michelle, Eric, Zach, thank you for joining us tonight and for preparing. Tonight's panel conversation is pretty loose and informal, but we've prepared more than enough stuff to talk about, really centered around the internship experience, the outcomes, and then any advice our panel discussion members can give to other folks. I'll be keeping an eye on the chat. I see you, Kriya. I see you, Kathy. Thank you for plunking links in there. So I would encourage all of you, if you have questions, plunk them in the chat. I'll try to field them and fold them into the conversation so we can talk about them in real time. And then we'll also set aside about 10, 12, 15 minutes at the end for more interactive Q&A. So with all of that said, hey, we're doing pretty good on time. Let's start with the internship experience. And Erica, Michelle, I'm looking in your direction. Let's just start talking about, from both the mentor and mentee perspective, thinking about COVID and the pandemic. So how did the firm create a meaningful experience pre and post COVID? And from Michelle, your perspective, I don't know if you worked in person or virtually, but Erica and Michelle, could you talk a bit about maybe coordinating virtually during the pandemic versus conducting the internship in person? Erica, can I put you on the spot?
Sure, happy to. So Michelle actually was in our office. She was in there when we went into lockdown. So we actually got to work directly with Michelle for the first basically 8 weeks of the internship. I think it was just the last 2 when we were moved to virtual. But it's been interesting because we then did it again this past year in total virtual scenario. And in some ways, I actually think we did a better job of making sure that Emily, who was our intern last year, felt really incorporated into the company because it was so virtual. Like we were just really focused on that. And I'd be curious to hear from Michelle whether she felt like we could have done a better job with the in-person side of that. There, I think there's an assumption when you're all in the office together that, you know, people will just be in the mix of things, but that's not necessarily always so.
Yeah, and so when I was there, I was in person and like juggling kind of school and the internship and just the physical commuting and like coordinating with my classes and coordinating with my like work. It's definitely like I definitely see the difference in between going in person versus the following year when I started working full-time at Green Hammer. We were actually had our second intern, Emily, as part of like the ETO leadership. And I did notice like she could engage more probably because of that scheduling. And like she definitely was more part of like our design conversations also. When I was there, it was just, I guess it was just tough to coordinate. Like I couldn't just like leave 30 minutes from school to go into the office for a design conversation or a design meeting. So there's definitely a benefit now to like, even though it was brought by the pandemic, like there's the benefit of like doing like a virtual internship in that way.
Yeah, I think interestingly, another kind of benefit of that is that we're able to pull from students down in Eugene as well, even though we're located here in Portland. So Emily actually I think she was partly down in Eugene and partly in her family's house in Washington. Whereas when it was a live internship, you know, it was only available to students who were here in Portland for at least Green Hammer. So it was kind of interesting that it allowed for more potential folks who are interested in working with Green Hammer to be part of it. But we love Michelle, so we're glad that we got her the first.
Yeah. Also, the funny thing about how just things worked out was, since I had met everybody in the office in person when I was doing the internship, once I came back, and now it was mainly online because it happened during the pandemic. Like, I just already knew everybody. It was just easier to kind of plug into the company dynamic and like already know like the names related to the faces that you see on Zoom or video calls. So I already had like a context of how the firm operated and just like the environment.
And I will say that is one thing that we made a special event for Emily to come to Portland and do kind of a tour of some of our projects so that she could meet folks in person as well. We had another intern from a different internship program and also did the same thing. And they both said that after having been here and meeting people in person, it made a big difference, even though it was just once during that time period.
Erica, Michelle, wonderful, thank you. Eric, can I kick it over to you from GBD's point of view, pre-post pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, we had such a huge success with our first intern, and GBD's culture has always been about mentoring, and we really take pride in that. And I think we were really stressed and worried that we weren't going to be able to have that same success and connection with our intern. But that didn't prove to be so. I think we took such great care, and Mason was actually not too far from my house. So we would actually go on walks, or we would meet up at a local coffee shop and just kind of chit chat and sit down and kind of, you know, use social distancing at the time. And that really worked out really well. And I think that made the human connection. And then we were able to have a couple of social outings, just like Eric had mentioned, with some people in the office, so that he could feel when he was onboarded that he was actually not just having a transactional relationship through a screen, that he could actually start learning and have a physical rapport with some of the people in the office. Oh, by the way, I'm trying to get Mason to join us, but he's running late. His class went over, so hopefully he'll join us soon.
He's a classy guy. Zach, from OTAC's perspective, I think, have you facilitated as a mentor pre and post pandemic?
Yeah, we did the last round. Part of the internship was during the pandemic. We were fortunate enough that a few months prior to COVID, we transitioned to all laptops anyway at our firm to kind of accommodate more of a work-life balance for like staff members with children and things like that. So we were pretty well versed at integrating remote work with our intern, Alex Smith, before the chaos unfolded. So that was really fortunate. We did meet up outside, similar to Eric, just casually, like over dinner and stuff, to touch base and make sure that like things were progressing and he still felt like part of the team and everything. So I think it's something that a lot of firms are finding easy to adapt to, especially in today's world. I mean, we're looking at downsizing offices and stuff because people get that work-life balance a bit better with the telecommuting.
Eric, Zach, I'm stealing all your ideas because we are also participating next year too. So thank you in advance. Next question is kind of related to the first one, both from mentor and mentee perspective. And Erica, I think all three of you kind of touched on it. Were there specific ways in which the firm created opportunities for interns to become embedded in the broader office culture? I heard things like going for walks, meeting up in person, masked up, socially distanced. So did the firm do anything specific to create those opportunities, be they in person or virtual? And then Michelle, would love to hear from your perspective. What were those most meaningful experiences? Erica, could I put you on the spot to start?
Yes, I actually think we did a better job of this once we were more conscious of it in the digital realm. But we have the interns come to, actually, I think this might have been where, again, because it was only virtual, Emily was able to do it more. Come to our all staff meetings that we have once a month. At the time when we were in person, we were just meeting once a month as a design team to kind of, but we're a design build firm for anybody who's not familiar with Greenhammer. So I should say that piece. So the design team, which is actually quite small within Greenhammer, would have a once a month meeting to check in on things. And since going virtually, it's moved to once a week. So when Emily joined on and she came to the design team meetings, I don't even think she was technically working on those days. She would just pop in for that meeting and was able to do that and then go back to her classes and such. So it actually made it a little more fluid for her. But so making sure that they are coming to meetings that are beyond just what the internship is about, I think is one of the critical pieces.
Michelle, I assume everything Erica said was right. From your perspective, were there specific, really, I'm in this a bit for our firm, choreographing our internship experience next year. What were those most meaningful experiences to get exposed to the broader culture from the intern's perspective?
I mean, I think just throughout working on the project that I like was assigned during the internship, I just gathered a lot of information through, like we had like bi-weekly meetings, I believe, just to like catch up on the project. But also like since we were in person, like there was like more room, I guess, for conversation compared to what happens usually online when online it's all very task oriented. So because I was in person, like I got a chance more to like meet just in the firm. Like I would work in the office even though I always could work like remotely. But just being in the office just kind of allowed me to just like get to know everybody around and also just get to know what current projects the firm was working on. Um, and I mean, I feel like when I was doing the internship, I didn't have that much opportunity to go to those like all staff meetings or like design team meetings because of like I was like in the middle of my thesis at that point. So it was like a little hard to juggle. But I remember like I went to lunch with Erica, just kind of like a checking, like that was really nice just to like check in on like what is the internship experience going, and like it was a good point to like get and receive and give some feedback on like so like to self correct instead of just leaving it towards the end of the internship and just like correct for the next one. So like the lunch, I think it was very like useful and just like a good checking of like, hey, like how's the internship going right now. So
These are fabulous thoughts on how to balance the human and pixels on screen. Eric, to be living near your intern, oh my gosh, what a luxury. But were there other ways GBD created opportunities for Mason to get exposed to the broader culture?
Yeah, I mean, I think at first he was kind of embedded, especially with his schoolwork. We were really wanting to be cognizant that he could be felt comfortable to be able to do his schoolwork. His schoolwork came first for us, and then we phased in and said, okay, let's once we get over our obligation with the grant, then let's open this up for you. And the great thing about Mason is that after he was done with his internship, we actually hired him. And so he's been working consistently with us since then. So, and that's part of our culture. I mean, we really want the experience to be able to be something that could be carried over, because we both, everybody involved invests so much into the effort. And so it was really, I think that was a successful outcome for us. I think the only other thing I would say is like with Bentley, who was our first intern, we spent a lot of time kind of learning through the DDX aspect with her. And I don't feel like she had the same opportunities. And I think one lesson we learned from her when we brought on Mason was that we really wanted him to be able to have a fuller experience with the firm and with the variety of work that we do. And at the same time, we really had some other kind of aggressive goals that we really wanted to hit, and around our sustainability initiatives. So that really helped, and he was able to really move that ball forward a lot on some of the things that we were trying to achieve. So it was a win-win for us.
Zach, how about for OTAC? Were all of your interns before COVID? Was it all in person?
So our first one was before COVID, and then our second wrapped up their internship right as COVID was kicking off. What was really beneficial that kind of helped mesh our firm with our second intern was that he was actually not an architecture major. He was going to school for renewable energy engineering. So that, like coming from a multidisciplinary firm at OTAC, was incredibly beneficial to see the more MEP focused lens, specifically with a background in renewable energy, towards how to address energy modeling and different strategies and tactics to reducing EUI for projects. So it became very much a like exchange of, he was sharing insights to us, and then we were illuminating like the architecture and structural elements of the design process to him. So it was very beneficial for both parties to kind of just broaden our understanding of the different disciplines involved in sustainable design. And I highly recommend anyone who is looking for interns or considering and participating in the program in the future to think outside of just the architecture university programs, because it's incredibly enlightening to have someone more technically savvy on the energy side to help contribute to this process in your firms.
My gosh, great point. In-house engineering, and that dovetails nicely with Erica's point earlier about casting a wide net, finding candidates where they are, be that geographically or just interdisciplinary. Thanks, Zach. Fabulous. Building on that line of thinking, and again, both for mentors and mentees, kind of a two-part question. You pick whichever one you feel like is most applicable, but through the internship experience, did that shape your approach to, and I know it's a broad brush term, but sustainable research, collaboration, and design? So did the internship experience shape how you approach those things now? Or did you learn anything innovative as it pertains to sustainable design strategies that are now part of your ongoing work? So Erica, sorry, putting you on the spot again. Hammer?
My pleasure. I would say that, Michelle was actually, I think, only the second intern that we had ever had at Greenhammer from the design team side of it. And having her for such a short period of time and seeing how much she was able to do and learn and help us move things forward, it really made a difference in us starting to seek out other internship opportunities, because it was such a great way to kind of boost the work that we do. We tend to do a lot of research anyway, and it was great to be able to have that be both a mentorship opportunity, an opportunity for somebody to learn more about how Greenhammer works and what we how we do our projects, but also how much they're able to contribute in such a short period of time. So it really was, it was inspiring in that way, I would say.
And I think from my perspective, and I don't know if maybe this is sidelining a little bit your question, but the research at the time that I was doing, it was very focused on trying to create a procedure within the design process to incorporate more like energy model procedures, and just like standardize a way to like report into 2030 DDX, and just like try to create more of like a continuous understanding of this processes throughout the design. So in me doing that, I think it, like, first of all, it got me familiar with the 2030 challenge, which is like a big part of the internship. So I think like it was just really interesting just to like get to know more about the program and just like the firms that are trying to commit to the 2030, and like also understand what are the baselines and just like a little bit more of the technical part of it. And then at the same time, I was like, it helped me kind of crystallize some of the like ideas that I had like during school, like classes and learning material that when you're in school, like you you just kind of like are writing things down and just kind of like turning in your head. But like while doing the internship, it just kind of like I saw it directly in the process and in the project, and also just talking through like EUI, just like energy in a building. Like I realized like how complex it is, and it just kind of allowed me the chance to do more in-depth research into it and get better understanding of the terminology, and also what are we looking for to be able to get to net zero for 2030.
Michelle, what you just said resonates deeply because our firm's first real exposure to DDX came through this program. So it sounds like we had parallel experiences. And what you describe also sounds like we talk a lot about kind of choose your own adventure, where you start with kind of an idea of what you might want to study or focus on, and then it kind of organically evolves based on maybe the firm's goals or the intern's personal passions. Eric at GBD, how did you guys choose your own adventure? Did you guys learn anything that you still use in your work to this day?
Yeah, and then to your point, I think our first intern, Bentley, she basically opened up our eyes, because as we started getting deeper into the data that we were collecting, that we were going to eventually upload to DDX, we realized that we were missing a lot of opportunities, and that a lot of the decisions that were happening, because the way the firm's structured and the studios are structured, is that we were having a lot of information that was getting siloed. And so the lessons learned sometimes were not being disseminated. And so we were seeing a lot of other people studios and teams doing the exact same thing that was already invested in another project. So we weren't really collaborating in a holistic firm-wide manner. So after we learned that through Bentley, our initiative with Mason was to say, okay, let's take those lessons learned and let's catapult that to the next level. And let's try to break down these silos and really take the rich data and information that's coming out of this effort and start thinking about tools. And so we're trying to build dashboards that are a little more live, that are a little more engaging, that everybody in the firm can engage with and see where we are, and then make informed decisions based off that information, based on what other projects have been doing and the successes and the lessons learned really from that. And so that's kind of where we're wanting to catapult with the next intern too. So it's this evolution of thought and evolution of effort. It just takes time. It's a slow cook, really.
Eric, you're making my job super easy. I heard you talk about feedback loops at an interdisciplinary firm. And Zach, with OTAC, does any of that resonate with your past processes?
Yeah, so similar to DBG, we had our first intern that helped kind of introduce our design team specifically to the whole process of energy analysis and uploading to the database. But then we were able to use our experience as a multidisciplinary firm to really integrate our second intern's background knowledge into our overall design process. And it was extraordinarily beneficial, because we went from thinking this was going to be like a batch upload process that we would have to like cram into like a couple months before the deadline. And we were able to weave the process very elegantly into our standard design practice now. And it's been so successful in the architecture group so far that we're actually looking at replicating some of our forms and tracking documents that we use internally now for our alternate disciplines like civil and landscape and structural, to make sure that we're not hoarding all of the sustainability practices just in architecture, because that seems like the most low-hanging fruit. So basically, involvement in this process has allowed for us to dissect and really understand how to integrate sustainability thought processes into the standard design process, like regardless of project type, because we do a lot of different typologies for our construction projects, and we've been able to adapt and roll into each of them with the same mindset.
Oh my gosh, what you said also hit me deeply in the DNA. That DDX deadline, March, April, seems so insurmountable before you do it. And each time it gets a bit easier and easier. So Zach, thank you. That was super helpful. Next line of questioning, again, two-part, also keeping an eye on the clock. I want to make sure we get to the advice piece. Erica, I'm looking in your direction. I'm going to put you on the spot. So the first piece of the question is, basically related to the mentees' final deliverables. Did you set out with specific goals in mind? And then I mentioned the choose your own adventure. Did the end result and deliverables kind of organically evolve in a different, maybe surprising direction? Or, and you get to choose your own adventure, over the last, say, 1, 2, 3 years, have you seen Green Hammer's research areas of focus evolve, or has it been kind of consistent? 2 questions. Did those make sense? And does one sound better to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually will answer them both, I think. So Michelle will actually have to tell me how far off from our original report idea that the final deliverable came. But our whole goal initially was to, like, as Michelle was saying, standardize how do we do energy modeling and how do we just track that throughout over the course of a project. So we had her do a lot of research on all the different energy modeling software that's out there so that we could hone in on what made the best sense and fit well with us. We ended up moving forward with Woofy Passive based on the work that she had done, primarily because we focus on a passive house approach and also the scale of projects that we do fit that modeling program best. And then because we're design build, we kind of have some standard approaches to how we build and how we try and get there with our assemblies. And Woofy Passive actually lets you create a library of assemblies to make modeling very simple and easy from a SketchUp model. And so the second year, what we had Emily do was actually build all of those assemblies for us so that we now have this quick catalog to be able to quickly model our projects. So that was kind of a nice 1-2 year, over the course of 2 years, getting that really defined. And then for this coming up internship, we're now starting to look more at carbon. And so our focus now has to do with carbon and understanding the carbon modeling on a project.
Yeah, and I think from my internship, there was sort of like set goals, but within those goals, there was also flexibility of, or like extra room, like, because like Erica said, like it was kind of hard to, I guess, know how long a task was gonna take. So it was like, well, we have like this set goals, and then if there's like room for more, or like if there's just not room, then we can just set those aside. So when I was doing the energy modeling, I realized how big of a beast that is. And I feel like most of you probably have gone through that, just because there's so many softwares available and there's many reasons why you should or should not use one. So going through that, it basically, like, it was kind of more consuming than at the beginning, but it was really interesting just to come up to a conclusion that does work for Green Hammer and that is like practical, like a practical application for what we can do. And it was also like, it was nice, like the next year, whenever we had Emily on board, just to see her kind of expand that initial research and just her get more in the weeds on this specific software and just kind of like standardizing like the energy modeling process.
I can relate deeply. We've tested Sapphire Insight COTE tool, and our first exposure to DDX came through this internship. So Erica, Michelle, thank you. Eric, from GBD's perspective, does any of that resonate? Any surprises, happy accidents, or changes in your areas of focus?
Yeah, I think what we're trying to figure out internally is my background, and I have a lot of experience with doing performance modeling, so energy modeling, daylight modeling. So I felt like I wanted to kind of see where the culture at GBD was with adoption, and there is a litany of modeling carcasses in the history of the firm where they did not, they implement it, but then no one uses it, then they don't renew it, and it just kind of dies on the vine. And so what we're trying to do right now is we're trying to kind of figure out what are the processes that yield the highest results, the fastest adoption, and still get us to the goals that we need to hit. And then where we need to do these kind of critical granular dives and do some more like internal energy modeling, because our projects are typically very big, and sometimes the design process is accelerated, And so it's trying to kind of fit all that in to have that integrated design approach and that iterative loop that needs to happen so that we can make informed design decisions. So it's a evolving process for us to sort of kind of understand. But I think what we want to ultimately do is, like I said, with this dashboard that we want to generate, really interconnect all this data in a way that makes it really as a powerful tool, is something that I think is going to be, it's going to have better success with the firm. And then again, doing these kind of like spot on modeling from time to time to sort of test it out. I think that's going to be the best approach for us.
That was really insightful. And Eric, Michelle, Eric, I heard you talk about each year builds on the previous year, and making time and space to try, experiment things that might not stick. So that also resonates deeply. Zach, from OTAC's perspective, does any of that sound familiar to you?
Yeah, specifically what Eric was mentioning about how best to make it a consistent process and really be the most useful addition to the design process as possible. What we currently are utilizing, which has been the most successful and also alleviates that like mad dash before deadlines to get the EUI information uploaded, is we've standardized making it a part of every design phase change, that in addition to our transitional meeting that we'll have when we're moving from SD to DD, DD to CD, et cetera, is we will run an update through Insight, which is what we primarily use, excuse me, through Revit to take the temperature of where our project's energy assessment is currently. For our more complex projects that might be pursuing like LEED or designed to a certain level of green globes and stuff, we typically will work with our MEP consultant team to actually provide a more robust energy model, since Insight can be a bit more bird's eye level. It's not as into the minute details of assemblies and stuff that you would necessarily want. But just getting everybody into the habit that it's part of our typical QA process, that if you're moving from one phase of design to the next, we need to know what the impact in the change of assemblies, the orientation, the glazing percentage, blah, 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 what that's impacting your building's energy requirements. And then it becomes a really important feedback system for the design team, that like if in SD we had way more glazing and then we see that immediate improvement in EUI, then that helps build the team's knowledge of like practices to use in future projects to keep energy in the back of their mind. So.
Zach, I love that, because how often do we run an energy model late, DD, CD, and some of these big moves are already made. So
yeah, no more time to change anything at that point. It's like trying to fill out a LEED scorecard when the project's under construction.
That was really insightful. Thank you. And maybe just for us, doing that energy model early, yeah, at all scales. Let's talk advice. And oh my gosh, the hour has flown. We're at 44. So with the next 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes, I do want to hear from the mentors. What advice would you give to other firms out there who are thinking about possibly applying, participating in the future? Maybe thoughts around the application process, the hiring, facilitating the internship, follow-up, and then also, Michelle, from your point of view, what advice would you give to other, students out there who might be thinking about applying? So, Erica, putting you on the spot, can we start with Greenham?
Sure. I would just say for anybody who's even considering it, absolutely apply and take a chance. The first year we applied, we actually didn't get it. And so, but ETO offered to follow up with us to talk about why we weren't necessarily selected and how we could improve our chances the next year. And obviously that was helpful. And we've been successful in the last 3 years. So definitely it's worth the effort. It's actually an amazing grant opportunity, gives you a chance to kind of see the talent of young students who are just about to finish school. And so when you need to hire somebody, you can have knowledge already that they're going to do a great job in your company because they've already been there as part of the internship. So.
So for anybody interested in the internship part of it, I mean, I would definitely recommend applying. I think for me, it was very useful to but like even though it's challenging to kind of balance like school and work, it is definitely, it resonated a lot of the things that I learned through school by doing the internship. And also just looking into like more of the technical side of things, it was like doing it myself and doing the research on my own, just kind of, or like, but with support obviously from like the team. It helped me just kind of crystallize a lot of the things that had been kind of maybe like sprinkled around through my education, and just solidify them into like a process, and also realizing them in an actual like firm and design capacity versus just like studio based. And I mean, it is like, I did study architecture, so a lot of it is related to architecture. But if like even outside of architecture, just getting more knowledge into like the technical part of it, or just like reaching like net zero energy in buildings, and just learning a little bit more about them.
I guess from a GBD's perspective, I mean, I think Erica actually hit a lot of the points that I would have brought up anyway, but I think the one thing that was really, that the first time we went through the process, I think the interviewing process went a lot smoother than the second part. Maybe that's because of the pandemic. And now that we're still in the pandemic, I think if you're going to apply, I would almost try to be preemptive and have a process for that interviewing and onboarding process, so that you can kind of feel really comfortable and not rushed, and finding a candidate that you feel really comfortable with, because you're going to be, for the next 2 or 3 months, you'd be really integral with this person. And I think that was that, and we've been very successful and extremely fortunate and lucky to have gotten the Mason and Bentley. But I think that was something that was a little bit more of it took a little longer to do that interview process than we had initially thought it would. And so I think that would be something I would just have that as a timeline, and just enjoy the process, because it's extremely important to be able to, the information that you're going to get from them is immense. I've learned so much from Mason and Bentley, just on what their schooling is, and the new technologies they're using, and the design thinking they're working with. We impart wisdom in both ways. It's a two-way street, and I really enjoy that.
Well, I have two things that I would like to just really hark on. So, number one, like I mentioned before, is this is a really good opportunity to work cross-disciplinary. I already mentioned we had tremendous success working with someone whose specific background was in sustainability and more on the technical side of that. I can't speak volumes enough of how beneficial that is, because then it's more of a learning process for everybody involved, as opposed to just like kind of clunking along and learning the same thing together. It's more of an exchange of information. And then the like most helpful hint that I would have, this applies more directly to people who are looking at using or participating in the Nizeli program a second time after they've had that introductory turn with it. Really focus on mitigating bottlenecks, because once you make it a team-wide effort, it really is less daunting. I know, like on the surface, it seems like this really daunting, insurmountable task to like start modeling this extra layer for all your buildings. But once you really break it down and make sure that you are reminding your team and everybody, this is just a part of the design process now. I mean, with energy codes advancing the way they are, this just needs to be part of what we as designers integrate into our process anyway. It really only factors to like a couple hours per design phase here and there. And then it becomes way less of a like financial burden. It's less stressful, and it's just second nature at that point.
I'm glad this is recorded, because I should have written all that down. It is 10 till, and I want to be respectful of everybody's time. No questions in the chat right now, but I did want to open it up. Were there any questions from anybody in the audience that we can talk about? And if not, I do have a bonus question in my back pocket. So please speak up now.
I have a quick question. So how were you introduced to potential candidates?
I think that was the thing that was actually, I didn't realize this when we first applied, but you actually, just like you would for hiring somebody for a job, it's up to you as a firm. So you reach out to the local schools. And in fact, I think that the year that Michelle applied, it was very close to the end of finals, I think it was, or end of semester. And so students weren't necessarily seeing it. And so we definitely reached out to connections that we had at some of the universities directly to say, do you have any students that you can encourage to apply for this? So
I'll ask that logistically then, does that mean you apply for the grant, you're awarded the grant, and then you seek applicants by casting a net like you're posting a job? Okay. And then is there a timeline for that? I mean, you said enjoy the process of interviewing candidates, but is there a certain timeline where you need to make sure you've got a person on board, or is this just a 1 year? What are the logistics of kind of the steps going through hiring someone and then onboarding them?
Well, it depends on when ETO finalizes the contract and the awarding of the grant to the firm, but usually they're onboarded or brought on. The internship starts at the beginning of the year, so usually the 1st of January, and then it typically will end in the end of March, I believe, is how it's kind of structured. So you have them for about 3 months. So the interview process, the outreach to sort of try to get applicants to submit for the internship or for the application for the job can be however long you think it needs to be. I think in the past it's been about a 4-week process for us to really feel like we're not really rushing. But with the holidays and everything, it really condenses that time, because again, you have to make a decision and have them on board typically by the 1st of the year.
Thank you.
So is there a prescribed number of hours for the intern to participate each week? I know, Michelle, you were trying to balance it with your classes.
Yeah, so there is I believe, is it 120 hours? Yeah, that you have to complete. So it would average about 10 to 15 hours a week, and then for a total of 12 weeks.
Great.
I would add to that as well, but for our second intern, we used the grant for that 120-hour aspect, but there was so much to learn from their background that then we ended up just filling the gap because they had more availability. So you're not like locked in at like only what's required for the internship. Like if your firm is willing, then you can of course like increase that time.
Mm-hmm.
And the other piece I think that's interesting to know too is that the grant, which is $6,000, if the student is not able to do more time or you don't necessarily have additional work for them, if there's any time that your staff is spending working with them, that can also go towards being funded by that grant. So there can be some time used that way.
And then I'm guessing the timing January through March times out with the DDX reporting period intentionally.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. So did one of you mention that you were just selected for the 2022 year? Is that the recent application? So is it, well, I guess that really makes sense. So you'd apply in 2020 to start your 2021 January through March stint. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think the application is usually in October. Does that sound right to everybody? And then you find out in November and then hire by end of the year and ready to start.
Great. So as far as tools, then you mentioned Insight. I know Cove was discussed. I don't remember if anyone said Sapphira. Is that something? And then I know Tally is out there, but I think Tally's focused on maybe embedded carbon more than energy. But are there any tools that people have found great success or significant problems with?
So when I was doing the research, it was focused on the project type, that because we mainly do single family homes and some multifamily. So I kind of found out that a lot of the tools are more useful for commercial buildings. So it's really kind of narrowing down to what it is that your firm works on and what tool is that useful for. Um, and also so we ended up with Woofy Passive, which is a very accurate energy modeling tool. But I guess the downside on that one is that it's not very appealing to look at. It looks like from like the 1998 Windows, but it is very useful. But it does take some technical savviness to go through it. So it is something that you do have to teach the designers to how to operate. And because if you don't use it frequent enough, like by the next time you have to open it again, you won't remember where the tab is to change something. So like that is the downside of Woofy, but we do get more accurate energy modeling consumption.
The one thing I would add is, just because I have a lot of experience with the energy modeling field, it's all going to be what tool you feel comfortable with. It's going to allow you to have the adoption. That if it's going to be burdensome and it's going to be hard and it's going to be a hurdle, then you're not going to use it, period. Because just good, unless you really spend a lot of time doing trainings and getting over the learning curve. That's true with any software, but I find that, and this I think has been if there's been any hurdles or failures at GBD with this in the past, it's been because people just weren't familiar enough with it, didn't have enough time, they wanted the answer yesterday, and didn't embed it into the process. And we're trying to change that culture and do more like what Zach was mentioning, how they're kind of creating a system-wide adoption, but it's a process. I don't know if you know about Cove Tool, but Cove Tool has kind of created some really interesting dynamics with how you can get your geometry, the architects really work on, into an environment where you can do simulations relatively quickly. So that would be the one that I think that would probably have the easiest adoption for a lot of people.
That's a very powerful tool. I know that the gal from Cove, the founder, did a presentation just about a week ago through the AIA. It was just, actually, you know what? It was AIA California, now that I think of it. Just phenomenal tool. So in terms of gathering the aggregate of information, do you task project managers with that? Do you have team champions, or is there like one point person? How do you distribute the work and get buy-in from everyone?
For doing some sort of sustainability efforts or modeling, or
no, for gathering the information to capture on a project by project basis.
for the intern,
for the DDX and for modeling, yeah.
For GBD, we typically we give a heads up to all the PMs who are responsible for the project, letting them know that the intern, or that we're going to be doing this push, and that they need to be readily available to be able to answer questions and go out to their team members. And sometimes it's going to have to go outside to either to the engineering field or the interdisciplinary consultants to sort of compile all the information that's necessary, so that we can give that to the intern, and then they can use it to upload to DDX.
And on the other side of scale, we're a very small firm, and we actually have just had, it's typically a single person who creates a spreadsheet that has all the data that they're looking for, and they can typically find it on a project in just from our project folders. But if they can't, they reach out to whoever is the project architect on that project to gather the information from them, and then they've entered it into it. And sometimes that's been the intern, sometimes that's not been. Most of the time we've had our interns actually just working on our processes, as opposed to actually being the ones who are like entering that data in. So.
And then at OTAC, we tried the PM route, and that didn't work very well because they're already very bogged down with other PM duties. So again, keeping in mind the whole like avoid bottlenecks technique that we've really been embracing, I myself am like the overseer, but each project has a kickoff meeting, and at that meeting we identify whoever has the bandwidth and has the interest in tracking sustainability requirements for the project. Because in addition to just energy modeling, we're also comparing all of our new projects with LEED, just so that we familiarize our staff with the requirements of LEED and see what our basic projects come in at, if they can be certified, blah, blah, blah. And what we've noticed so far is a lot of our drafters have been kind of the best people to front that effort. They're already technically inclined. We use Revit and Insight. I also, sidebar, I encourage everybody to check your Revit subscription. A lot of them already have Insight baked into it, and you don't have to pay anything extra to have that capacity. It's just part of the corporate package. But it really kind of helps to just keep one more checklist off of the PM's desk and make sure that it's getting done by someone who's in the model more frequently and understands all of the subtle changes that have occurred, and you don't have to have as many meetings to coordinate that.
Zach, have you ever shared your energy model output with one of your consultants to vet it, just the accuracy of Revit, and see how close that comes?
Yeah, we have with a couple projects that we wanted to specifically vet Insight for that reason, because it's like, this seems too easy. And we had a pretty heavy lead requirement for energy reduction. And so we had our MEP team utilize their energy modeling software and then compared it. And it wasn't drastically different. Ours was a bit off, actually saying that it was performing a little worse than what their model spit out, which was the opposite of what I was expecting. I was thinking that it was going to be giving us like way more points than we deserved. But it was a good cross check. And those were both for multifamily projects that we looked at. So we haven't looked at how it affects like our commercial or mixed use or core and shell and stuff like that yet. But it seems to be fairly close, about like a 10% delta.
Great.
Lisa, I owe you a beer or two for being our Q&A all-star. Getting some messages from Kriya and Kathy. It's keeping an eye on the clock, and this is a great problem to have. We're going over time. Thank you again, everybody. You didn't have to be here, and you are. Kriya, can I kick it back to you? Did you want to post the polling questions?
Sure, absolutely. We want to know if you're interested and capture if you are, so we can follow up with information on the application or more information about firms that are looking to find their new intern. So let me just get the polling questions if you are someone that wants more information. And I just opened them up, and that way we know to connect with you in the future to provide you more on the Energy Trust Net Zero Emerging Leader Internship grant in process. And I think you're right, Matt. What an incredible group and great questions, great panelists. Thank you all for being a part of this.
Thanks.
No, I do feel like there has to be a cheers or something or a wave. It's always, how often do we do this in a real work situation where I'm always like going like this after Zooms? I'm going to incorporate it if we ever get back into the office. I don't care. Thank you, everyone. And thank you for answering the poll. If you answered it, we'll get back to you.
Has the poll gone up? Because I don't see it.
Did you not see the poll?
I see it.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know why it's not on mine, but that's fine. As long as everybody else sees it.
It might be like behind a window or something.
Thanks so much to all of you for your time and preparing for the presentation. It was really informative. Appreciate it.
Okay,
Whatever it is.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.
bye-bye. Thank you.
Have you gotten the amount of people you wanted?
Okay.
Yes, yes, wonderful.
good.
Just ended the poll now. And if you don't mind, Kelly, can you share the just registration or the polling with us?
Yeah.
And we'll absolutely follow up on those people that said, follow up with us. We want to know
Okay.
more.
I will get that to you.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you both. And,
right.
you know, as always, give all of my hugs and love to Miss Colleen, the AIA woman extraordinaire herself. And hopefully I get to see you guys all soon coming up.
Yeah, hopefully.
That would be nice to
Hopefully
meet
for
you in
the-
person.
I know, we've seen each other online. All right, thank you.
All right, bye, guys.
Good.
Thank you.
Bye.
We'll see you later. Take care.